Hi there, I'm Matt Donnelly of RotoBaller, and it is time to talk about those starts and sits at the wide receiver position for week number 9, Trick or Treat edition. But before we do, just a reminder that this video is being recorded on Monday, so plenty can happen between now and Sunday's kickoffs. So make sure you are tuned into rotoballer.com, or you head over to the RotoBaller Discord channel for all the latest fantasy football news. Now let's get at it here with our starts and sits, starting with CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, Lamb is a must start this week. I was wrong last week when it came to Lamb, so I wanted to give the man the proper respect. 12 catches, 14 targets, 158 yards, and a pair of touchdown receptions against a Rams defense that previously only conceded a single touchdown to the position this season. Yet this week he may be in for even a bigger fantasy performance. The last time that we saw Lamb face this Eagles team was last Christmas, where he had 12 grabs for 120 yards and a pair of scores in that game as well. And that was when teams feared this Eagles secondary. Philadelphia, they are allowing nearly 47 fantasy points per game to the position, and they have allowed 280 passing yards per game over the last 3 weeks. No team in the NFL has allowed more receptions to receivers than the Eagles, who also sit top 5 in allowing receiving yards and touchdowns surrendered to the position so far. Another wide receiver you can start this week is Garrett Wilson versus the Los Angeles Chargers. As long as this offensive line there for the Jets can keep Zach Wilson clean, then Garrett Wilson, he is going to have himself a day against his Chargers secondary. A secondary that is allowing 260 passing yards per game. That is the 5th most in the league. And 40.9 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. That is the 3rd most. And the best way to do that is to find a way to contain Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. And the best way to do that is to check it down, which is going to soften things up in coverage for Garrett Wilson. Last week, Wilson had 7 catches on 13 targets for 100 yards against a Giants team that is allowing just a 155 yards per game this season. When you see that 38% target share as Wilson saw last week, it is going to add up in fantasy. When you see a 38% target share against one of the worst secondaries in the league, that adds up to a top 12 fantasy performance. My third treat there at the wide receiver position is Amari Cooper versus Arizona. I don't care if it's PJ Walker. I don't care if it's Deshaun Watson. This matchup is too good to pass up. Before last week, no team in the NFL was giving up more to receivers than the Cardinals had the previous 4 contests. They were allowing over 46 fantasy points per game thanks to 65 receptions, 854 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Last week, Cooper accounted for 89 of Walker's 248 passing yards, and he earned a 37% target share. This was 2 weeks after hauling in 108 of Walker's 192 passing yards against the 49ers. On the season, Cooper has 478 receiving yards and averages 15.9 yards per reception. Fantasy managers, though, they've been missing out on one thing, and that is those Cooper touchdowns, as he has just 1 this season. But odds are, this is a good week considering Arizona has allowed 6 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers in the last 5 weeks. Plus, the Browns are at home, where Cooper averages more than 25 yards per game and 6 more fantasy points per contest. How about a sleeper wide receiver? How about Demario Douglas? Mostly because I refuse to say anything good about Juju Smith-Schuster. Douglas caught 5 of 7 targets last week, and the Patriots, they are up without their number 1 wide receiver the rest of the season, and they face a Commanders team allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to wide receivers so far. How about some tricks? Hollywood is full of tricks, and so is Marquise Hollywood Brown this week against the Cleveland Browns. It's only a matter of time until Kyler Murray returns under center and Hollywood becomes a must-start each and every week. Unfortunately, we already know that Murray's return as a starter isn't going to come this week. Coach Gannon has already said that Joshua Dobbs is going to be under center as Brown takes on this Browns secondary that is allowing the 3rd fewest points and receiving yards to wide receivers this season. After watching Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf combine for 13 catches, 158 yards, you may decide to get kind of cute against this Browns. Hey, I'm still fading Marquise Brown in this matchup. I get managers, they're going to be scrambling this week with the likes of Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, and Cortland Sutton out, but this ain't it for Marquise Brown this week. I'm telling you right now. Another painful sit for me this week is Keenan Allen versus the New York Jets. I'm tempering expectations for Keenan Allen against a Jets team that is allowing just 164.3 passing yards per contest. Now, I'm expecting the Chargers to continue to feed Austin Eckler underneath, which unfortunately comes at a cost to Allen's fantasy production. Further to that, the Jets, they've allowed just 1 receiving touchdown to a wide receiver this season. And it certainly helps when you have two of the best cover corner guys there on the outside in Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. Not to mention one of the top slot corners in the league in Michael Carter. With the Chargers already without Mike Williams and Josh Palmer's recent injury, the Jets secondary, all their focus is going to be on Allen. And my final sit this week is Devonta Smith versus the Dallas Cowboys. I need to sit an Eagles receiver, and I ain't dumb enough to sit A.J. Brown against the Cowboys. Smith, he finally got himself back into fantasy manager's good graces after a 7-catch, 99-yard performance against the Commanders last week. Now, you take that one game out of the equation there for Devonta Smith, and he's got just 381 receiving yards in 7 games. Why am I taking away that one game? Well, the Dallas Cowboys, they've been taking away opposing wide receivers this season, allowing just 220 passing yards per game, and receivers being responsible for just 819 yards in 7 contests. Dallas is allowing less than 26 fantasy points per game this season, and they held Cooper Kupp to just 4 catches and 21 yards, and Puka Nacua to just 3 grabs and 43 yards a week ago. That being said, thanks for tuning in again this week. Be sure to like and subscribe to the RotoBaller YouTube channel, and make sure to tune in for plenty more fantasy football analysis. Gotta go fast!
Week 9 start sit featured NFL football players, how to play fantasy football, injury updates, NFL fantasy football, NFL player updates, offensive lines, player projections, point per reception strategy, quarterback, RotoBaller QB